Good morning. No, good afternoon. Happy Inauguration Day. Did you know we were doing this on Inauguration Day, Ben?
I did not, but it seems appropriate. You know, I just had a conversation with somebody, and it doesn't matter what political affiliation that you're with. Uh, Biden's walking into a mess. He's walking into a health crisis, social crisis, and economic crisis caused by COVID and all these other sort of things. And somebody said, "Well, what do you think about that?" I said, if Biden tries to solve every problem at once, nothing's going to get done. Like a leader's job is to sit back and say, what is the most important thing that I could do right away and make that one thing happen? And then ask the question, what's the next most important thing? And if you try to tackle everything at once, you end up with what I call the cream of the crop. You end up with nothing done great. And it's a leader's challenge, and the new administration is going to have to figure that out. But also we in our companies, we have to ask ourselves, we're going through our own crises. What's the most important thing that we can figure out to make sure that this is a good year and that we stay healthy and financially we're secure and all that other kind of stuff? You can't say there's 100 things I got to do and then do nothing. We got to pick one. What are we going to do today? And what are we going to do this month that's going to determine if we win or not?
You know what's wild? I'm not making this up, and you and I didn't get a chance to talk this morning. I just had a conversation with David Woods an hour ago on this exact topic with our company, and how we ended the call. I said, David, one of the great lessons Ben has taught me is the concept. In fact, I posted this on my status on Monday, Ben, for Martin Luther King Day, is the concept that you don't have to see the top of the stairwell to take the first step. And sometimes we don't know what the 10th step is, but, we know definitively what the next step is. And, when we get up that step, I've used a mountain analogy, then we kind of can see a little bit more, we're a little higher, and then we kind of see a little bit more clearly what the next step is, right? You taught me that. That's great.
I think I was walking with somebody one day, Via, and we were walking to lunch. As you guys know, of the things I love lunch, right? And we were walking to lunch, and the person asked me a question. They said, why do you think some people get so far in this business and some others don't? And these people, from perspective, they all went to college, or they all had previous careers. They're all can communicate like that. From the outside, they all look, relatively equipped in the same way. And I said, look down in front of us. Like, what do you see on the ground? And we looked down at the ground. We were walking across the road, and he says, I see gum, and there's like a cigarette butt, and there's oil stains, and there's cracks. And I said, yeah, a lot of people see that. And when they see that, they stop. They said, and now ask me what I see. And he said, well, what do you see? I see lunch. I'm going to lunch. And it doesn't matter if there's gum or oil or trash on the ground. Like, I'm going to lunch. And I don't allow those little tiny things to stop me, as you said, from taking the first step in the stairwell, right? I'm clear. Where am I going today? I'm going to lunch, ladies and gentlemen, because I love lunch.
I kind of stole you from your lunch shirt because it's noon. And Ben, we just came in hot. I probably ought to introduce this whole thing to everybody because there are people that are just joining us on Facebook. Welcome to our Zoomers. Welcome to our Facebookers. My name's Vija Williams, and this is Ben Kinney. This is our webinar that we do every Wednesday at noon Pacific time, really targeted towards real estate agents and tactically how they can, learn what's happening very recently and utilize that in their business. I did want to put a little plug in for next week. I'm really excited because so many of you guys have kind of talked about when you ask us to do webinars, like what the topics you want. A lot of you guys have just made your first hire or are thinking about your first hire. It's just an important move and an important moment in the real estate business. And so many of you guys are really busy right now. And Christy Belt Grossman and Stephanie Brackett from Ops Boss are going to come on next Wednesday. And they are the masters at all things admin and ops. And they're going to talk exactly about that. So don't miss it. And if you're not ready to hire, just remember you're going to probably need to hire at some point, and it's a really good skill set. Funny enough, that day, Ben, and the next day, Holly Priestner is also teaching career visioning. which is a great class on hiring. And so I will allow you to miss our webinar for that. You can watch us on replay because Holly's great. So we can try to find you the link for that so you guys can register. Welcome, Ben.
I had a great call this week with Christy Belt Grossman, and we were talking about systems and the business they built at OpBoss and OpsBoss. And here's what I was thinking. I said, what they teach is for everybody, because if you don't have an administrator or a VA or an operations person, you are that person. And what Christy really teaches is how do you implement systems and technology to ensure that everything gets done in a timely manner and it's efficient, so it doesn't take you 10 times the amount of time to get stuff done. So I love that. That's a great guest for next week. But until then, you are 100% stuck with Vija and Ben.
You're 100% stuck with us. We this is a little postponed, but we got the bonus Kimber last week, so I think it all kind of worked out for the best. So before we launch into forward thinking, Ben, I kind of want to do a little reflection with you publicly with all these people watching us. Because you and I haven't really had a big chance to talk about this actually. And I'm personally curious on this one. What were your big lessons from last year? And I want to preface it by saying, I think that collectively humanity got lessons. Let's skip those. we all got the important personal lessons on being a human from last year. I'm kind of interested in your business lessons and your leadership lessons.
Yeah, I think that's great. Last year required us to show up. I think if you were to go back in time and you were to watch a webinar that V and I did in February of last year, before anybody else was talking about COVID or the economic crisis, I came in to all of you and I said, this is not a snow day. This is going to last for a while. And I said it could be months or it could be till the end of the year. Everybody else was thinking that this is going to be a week or two and we're going to high five, we're going to go back to normal. I made the statement, not to pat myself on the back, ladies and gentlemen, but I said this is going to be an awkward year. Here's what I didn't really understand is that the real estate market, because of the lack of inventory and low interest rates and people's desire for housing, was still going to be as strong as it was last year. And that surprised all of us. In fact, I said to somebody the other day, they said, well, how was your year? And I said, honestly, it was pretty good. And it was pretty good financially and it's pretty good business-wise, because we took action in February and we doubled down on lead generation. We cut expenses. Like, I feel like I won. If they're handing out, as Vija said, if they're handing out trophies for COVID, like I feel like we got a couple trophies as a company and as leaders last year. Many of you on the call, you guys got trophies last year. And my comment to my friend was, I kind of feel bad. I said, I feel bad because I know I have friends and neighbors and people in my community that really are hurting, and they lost their businesses or their restaurants or their gyms or all these, or their jobs or whatever. And I know they're hurting. I feel bad. And my friend looked up and she said, don't feel bad, Ben. You had your hard time. You went through 2008 to 2010, and that was extremely difficult. And you endured something in the real estate industry that really nobody had gone through. And some other people were untouched then. And in this particular year, the real estate market happened to be good and everybody else was harmed, but we aren't out of this yet. We still may have our time. It just last year wasn't our time. So don't feel bad. Just use the money that you made to do good and use this as an opportunity to build up the walls around your businesses and around your lives. I have another employee who had two incomes last year. She works on a salary and she also does some real estate on the side. But because of COVID, she made the decision last year that she was not going to focus on her real estate business because she did not want to be out and about because of the disease. Personal choice. I respect that. That's awesome. The downside is that she had 20% or 30% less income that she had the year before. And I said, well, how did that affect you? And she came back and said, you know what's interesting is at the end of this year, I have more money than I had a year ago. And I said, well, why do you think that is? She said, because when you said to get rid of everything, including the kitchen sink and Netflix, I did. And I cut our expenses. And then because we weren't going out to eat and we weren't when we weren't taking trips and we weren't buying stuff because I was more cautious, I just spent a lot less. I said, so what'd you learn? She said, I learned I could actually live on a lot less and I didn't need those things. And those things weren't necessarily making me happy, that I could actually live a life of 20 or 30% less income and still save money. And Via, I think that was a lesson for you and a lesson for me and a lesson for our businesses and many people on the call, is that if we walked away from something from 2020, is that we can live on less. And if we do, and our businesses incomes maintain, we can save and make strides forward in our net worth. So that would be a couple of obvious lessons that are sitting in front of me today.
That's really good. And, I'm curious, kind of building on that a little bit. What kind of changes did any of your companies go through that are going to stay because of COVID, right? They went through the changes because of COVID, but they will keep.
One, we realized that we could operate our businesses with a lot less expenses. In some situations, we realized that we could actually do things with a lot less staff. But also we realized that our staff could stop doing 50% of the stuff that they did, and it wouldn't make any impact on our business, that we could continue forward and just have them focus on what's most important and we could still win. I think that's good. Many of us realized that we could actually do real estate virtually, that we could do listing appointments and buyer consults, and we could do lead gen, and we could touch our sphere, and we could do things in a brand new way. And it still be extremely effective and productive. And then you only go out face to face when you truly have to. I think that's a lasting, standing thing that's going to stick with us, that we've learned that we can do business differently and it's a lot more efficient. And I hope we'll stick with that. I learned that I didn't have to go out to lunch all the time. And because of that, I'm a little bit more svelte than I was 6 months ago.
Very much so. Looking good, my friend. You've lost a lot.
It was your motivation to do the 75 hard that
I'm a butt kicker. I've been kicking your butt. I kicked your butt this morning, actually.
Yeah, Via sends me accountability texts at 6 a.m.
Yeah, and there's often violent threats in there too. So yeah. FYI, I'm a fun accountability partner. I'm curious, Ben. I've been thinking about this myself, so I'm really curious about your answer. Has your definition of leadership changed? Do you think that what it takes to be a good leader now, understanding everything the world's been through, is this a different definition now than it was a year ago? What does that look like?
I think different times require different types of leaders. And maybe what happened during the good times is we got used to being managers. And we try to equate managing to leading, but managing is not leading. Managing is just moving things around. Leading is saying, I'm willing to get into the trenches. I'm willing to make the calls. I'm willing to do the stuff. I'm willing to be in a position that does one of two things. I reduce expenses or I increase income. I think that is one change in leadership that we saw last year. In my mind, I call that the Braveheart approach. Like sometimes you get behind your people and you push them. And sometimes you paint your face blue, you put on a kilt, you grab your sword and you run into the front of the group and you say, follow me, we got this. And you start running out there with no underwear on, just your kilt, face painted blue and perfect abs like Mel Gibson. And you just start going and saying, we got this, follow me, follow me. And there's a lot of people that are sitting on the sidelines waiting for somebody like you and the audience to say, we got this, follow me. I think we also learned that leaders during tough times have to be empathetic. Empathy says that we try to understand how people feel and what they're going through, that some people do not want to do business and some people are willing to do business during this time. Some people are worried and scared. Some people are losing their businesses and their jobs. Some people are doing phenomenal. Some people have certain political beliefs and some people have others. And our job in real estate is to be empathetic to everybody's beliefs and support them and to call them and simply give them one message. I was thinking about you. Is there anything I can do to help you during these tough times? Has the chaos that's been created over the last year created any real estate related questions for you or your family? And be willing to call and simply let them know that we're here and we care. Empathetic leaders are needed during tough times. And that's what our job is. Our job is to call and check in with people and see if they're okay and offer to help them. Now, problem with offering to help people is the moment that they say, yeah, you got to deliver on that offer. You have to be willing to follow through with the commitments that we make, which is probably another aspect of leadership. And over the last period of time, great leaders follow through with what they say they're going to do. The promises we make to our employees, the promises we make to our customers, right?
Part of the 4 agreements, it's on my daily commitments. My word is my, be true to my word. I have a story. Do you want a story on that?
Yeah.
I was just interviewed this morning. Chris Suarez interviewed me for something, and he asked me about leadership. And I told him a story about you and I at the beginning of the pandemic. And I bet you I've never told you this story. And because he has asked me a similar question. And I said, by the way, my definition of leadership has changed, and it's almost identical to what you described. And I was telling him the story that it was very early in March, right after quarantine hit. And I was uncharacteristically kind of hammering you behind the scenes. I don't do it a lot, where I feel really strongly. And I was like, you have to address our people. And you didn't want to. You're like, I don't think they want to hear from me, whatever. And I was like, really, I pushed you on that one. I don't do that a lot. I kind of choose my battles, right? And we set it up, and I drove up to Bellingham, and I remember walking in your office, and my pregame to you was like, this is your Winston Churchill, buddy. Like, this is like, the troops need this, right? And I was positioned so that if you can picture, like, you guys are all looking at your screen, I was kind of like behind Ben's screen, kind of to the side, so he could see me, but you couldn't, he was talking to you. And I just felt really strongly in that moment that I needed to encourage you and support you. I don't know why. It was just a weird vibe. Like, it's easy to look back now and say, we all turned out okay in our industry, but it was a scary time. Like, if you go back then, we kind of like 9/11, like, you can look back in retrospect, but you don't know what's going to happen next, right? And I just remember the whole time I was like, good, no, good, okay, good, and I was super animated. I was very animated, and I was really purposely animated. And then we were done. You were like, wow, that was great. It was really great, having you there. And I drove home that night, and I remember thinking, that is the kind of leader I want to be. I want to be a behind the scenes leader that puts my people in the spotlight, just like that, where I'm an encourager and a supporter like that. And I'm there when they need me. And, I drove up there, and I was like, if I can exemplify that moment throughout this whole thing, we're going to be okay. Right. That was not, and that, I don't think that was the kind of leader I was kind of prior to that moment. Right. So I think that what you just said is so important. This empathy, this like encourager, supporter, and then showing up is kind of everything. And it's more everything now.
I remember that call, and I remember looking at you and you shaking your head, and that was the kind of, okay, I'm going down the direction, and that's a good lesson, and we need to do that for more people.
Yeah.
Sometimes we step in front and we do stuff, and sometimes we just gently put our hand on somebody's shoulder and say, you got this, and we just stand behind them. I hope everybody in our companies for the last year felt like we were standing with them, in front of them, or behind them, depending on what they needed and what the day was, and trying to help them navigate uncertain times. And 2020 was uncertain times. There was no playbook for this type of stuff. We didn't know what was gonna happen. And one of the challenges that you and I had is we had to resist making long-term decisions in a time that was changing minute by minute, hour by hour, day by day. We had to make incremental changes based on the data that we had. And we knew that it was actually going to change the next week or the next couple of days. But instead of being reactive, we made decisions with what was in front of us. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I talked about it recently, where I fell prey at the early days. You were a good coach on that, where the loudest voice was the most important voice in my head. And the loudest voice isn't the most important voice necessarily, right? And I think that, one of the things we did really well is we were really good at like rapid fire triage and priorities. And so we kept like checking in, like, all right, what's the priority here? What's the priority here? And making sure, for me anyway, I was making sure I was hearing from way more stakeholders in the company before I would say, like, advise you on a decision or whatever, right? Because it was just happening so fast. And I think, I guess I could say me, I know you were already good at it. I got really good at looking someone in the eye and saying, you're going to be disappointed in me because I'm not going to make this announcement today. And I know you want me to. What I'm going to do is probably make this announcement in a few days. We're going to wait and see. We're going to see how this flushes out. We're going to talk to different people. I also want you to know that you're heard. I appreciate your input, and I don't want you to think I'm ignoring you, but the timing, you taught me to not be completely reactionary to that loud voice, right? That's good. Moving forward, Ben, what do you see? How did you plan for this year? So kind of moving from 2020 into 2021, let's just kind of start with your context of what you're seeing in real estate this year, because I think that's an important context to understand your perspective. Like, what did you plan for when you kind of did your projections for your different companies, and what are you anticipating?
So the first thing I had to accept was that the normal that I knew in 2019 was not going to be present in 2021. And we're already seeing that with vaccine rolls out and all these sort of things. This is not hey, let's get through February and things are back to normal. Let's just plan for 2021 to be like 2020. That was my first reality check for myself. Well, when that happens, I have to say, well, what do I think the real estate market in itself is going to do? Well, there's a few things that drive the real estate market. Inventory. And as you all know, inventory is at a ridiculously low level. And until inventory catches up with demand, it's going to be a hot market in our world. The second thing is interest rates. And interest rates are at all-time lows. In fact, one of the care calls that you can make out to your database is saying, I'm sure you're aware that interest rates are extremely low. It would probably be valuable for you to consider refinancing, or at least getting an estimate to see how much you could save with your family. Now, the cool thing with our in-house mortgage options is it doesn't cost them anything to refinance. One of my good friends, Tim, came to me the other day. So I was talking to my sister. She works at a bank, and she said that if I refinance, I could save $250 a month. So that seems significant to your life, and that would be useful because you're saving $250 a month for the rest of your home loan for the next 30 years. He said the problem is she was going to add the fees back onto my mortgage, so I'm actually going to owe $5,000 or $6,000 more. I said, well, that's, number one, don't do that, because that means for the next 3 years you're not saving money. You just added to your debt, which is why our mortgage company doesn't have lender fees. That's why we give $1,000 credit at closing for appraisals, so that you don't have to add that. He's like, I didn't know that. And I said, well, this is an option for you. So interest rates are going to be low for a while, which means we're going to have a hot spring. It's going to be low inventory, low interest rates, and it's going to be a tough time for buyers. In every market, there's winners and losers. There actually isn't a market where sellers win and buyers win. The buyers can't get the best deal and have all the choices of inventory, and sellers get the highest price and sell quickly. That doesn't exist. All there really is great markets for sellers and great markets for buyers. We have to understand for the near future, the next 90 to 180 days, for guaranteed, this is going to be a great market for sellers. Somebody asked me the other day, hey, is now a good time to sell? I looked them in the eyes, Vija, and I simply said, only if you'd like to sell for over asking. And that's exactly what they did. They laughed at me. They said, what? I said, now's a great time to sell, but only if you would like to sell for more money than your home's worth. They're like, well, what do you mean? I said, there's more buyers than there are homes. Homes are getting bid up to the place where they may not even appraise, but people have cash. It's ridiculous. If you want to sell for a lot of money, now's a great time. If you want to wait, I can't guarantee that it's going to happen. You could actually sell for less than it's worth because inventory starts to gain so quickly. So when I'm reaching out to people, I have to know what words to say to people to explain the opportunities and and issues that are happening in our market. What are some things that could make the end of the year be not as good? Well, one thing that the government does is they try to control inflation. Inflation is the value of goods and services and how that price has changed over time. And if inflation gets too big, in that scenario, costs rise and it becomes unaffordable because wages don't grow at the same rate as inflation. In real estate, we don't call it inflation, we call it appreciation. And they don't want appreciation to grow so fast that the average person can't afford the average home. That creates a gigantic gap, which gets filled with air. The air becomes a bubble and then it collapses. We call that 2008 to 2010. They don't want that to happen. So what does the government do to control inflation or appreciation? They change rates, or they change the ease of getting money. They start ramping up the requirements that it takes to get a loan. And we saw that in 2020, where the bank said, we don't know if people are all employed still. We don't know if their income's gone down. We don't know if their businesses is still in place. So right before closing, we're going to ask them again for a copy of their bank statements. We're going to ask them again for a copy of their pay stubs. We're going to check credit again right before closing. And there was all these new standards to mitigate the risk. It's my belief that if the real estate market continues to grow uncontrolled, that the banks will control it by making money harder to get. And that is a risk. The next risk is that there's nearly 30 million homes that are currently in some form of default, or they're not making payments because it's been, what do you call that phrase when you pay later? Somebody can help us out.
I am blanking out.
Forbearance, Tracy. Thank you, Joy.
Thank you. Why did that word leave me?
I don't know. There's all these people that are in default. There's all these people that are currently in forbearance. There's all these renters that are currently not paying rent, and the landlords that are trying to figure out a way to still pay the mortgage. There is an amount of people that is growing. Now, will the new administration create ways to protect those people so they don't actually have to go into foreclosure? Gosh, we hope so, but we don't know. So at the end of this year, maybe inventory increases because people actually have to sell because of financial problems or financial needs, et cetera. So those are things that I'm paying attention to. If you want to pay attention to it yourselves, you have access to our inventory. It's called the MLS. Your job is to track the number of new listings, the average days on market, the number of solds, the number of price reductions, and the number of canceled expires. If you start seeing those numbers increase dramatically, you know that there's something happening in the next 60 to 90 days. Those numbers are early indicators of market shifts or demand shifts.
Yeah, and if you're in our brokerages, you know that the second Tuesday of every month, we do a deep dive into the Puget Sound, into the Northwest Multiple Listing Service market stats every single month, and we have these conversations. And as a network-wide family, we track this like a hawk, and so our agents always know pretty immediately what it's looking like that day. I feel really strongly about that too. This is great, Ben. Thank you. So with all that said, and I think it is important to get that perspective from you, the big question, the title of the webinar, what should agents focus on this year?
I think the agents need to focus on doing more contacts and having more conversations. I was talking to one of my mentors and coaches the other day, and she said, the data shows that in today's market, we have to make 150 contacts to get a closing, not to get an appointment, but we have to have 150 conversations to guarantee that we are going to get a paycheck. Well, that number in my history, when I started, was 52. I needed to have 52 dials to get my 15 conversations, to get a certain amount of appointments that would lead me to a certain amount of closings. It's changed dramatically. You got to have 150 conversations. So if you wanted to get one paycheck for every week that you work, and you were working 5 days a week, you take 150 divided by 5, you got to have 30 great conversations every day of the week. And that's if you just want to sell 50 homes in a year, right? If you want to sell half of that, you need to have 15 great conversations a day, and you're going to sell 2 homes per month. It's directly related to the conversations that we're having. And then the next thing that we have to focus on is how good are our conversations. I'll kind of give you guys an idea of a tool that you should download and try. Download the BKCO mortgage calculator. Make sure when you go to the App Store, right now it's an iPhone, we're going to put it in Android shortly. But so if you have an iPhone, great. If you have an Android, just throw it away and buy an iPhone. So go there and download the BKCO mortgage calculator. Do me a favor, just do that. Now the reason I want you to do that is because the second tab down there, Vija, says calculator, and under the calculator, I built a mortgage calculator for you to talk to people about what their payments would be, et cetera. But I built the value of home ownership calculator. So let's pretend, Vija, that you're a buyer in an average price market in our state, not in Ball or Kirkland, but let's just average throughout a whole bunch of our counties. I'm going to have a conversation with Vija real quick. Vija, I want to talk to you a little bit about the value of home ownership. And I know you've been thinking about, hey, maybe I should wait and maybe buy in a year when we get through this chaos, but I don't know what the downsides or the plus sides of waiting or doing it now is. I say, great, Vija, let me talk to you about the value of home ownership and how much money you could potentially lose if you don't take the time to understand this. So just out of curiosity, Vija, the very first thing that I would see would be, what price is Vija going to pay for her home? So Vija, we've talked a little bit about payment. We did the payment calculator, and we know how much homes are selling for in our Tacoma area, whatever market you're looking in. What's the price that you're thinking of for the house or the condo you're going to buy? Just give me a price.
Probably like 375 or 400.
Okay. I'm going to do 400,000. So all I do under purchase price is I go and I type 400,000 in there. Now, the next thing I'm going to say, well, Vija, how much are you going to put down? Now, Vija's a regular buyer, right? She's not a move up buyer. She's just a regular buyer. She has a regular job, right? She has some retirement and she has maybe some money from somebody, and she's going to put, what do you think put down would be a good first time home buyer down payment?
I'm going to put 10% down. So I'm going to put 20,000 down.
So you're going to put 10%. So all I go is I type in 10% in the calculator. Now I scroll down. I select a loan term, 30 years, pretty traditional. And then I select the interest rate. It defaults out at 3.75. You can adjust it if you want. But I'm going to say, Vija, in our market, over the last 10 years, the average appreciation is what? Just make a guess for me, Vija. What do you think?
9%. 8% on average.
8%. Okay. That might be a little aggressive for somebody, and we can't guarantee it. The national average in the United States for the last 30 years has been 4%. So let's go in the middle. Let's pick 6. So under average appreciation, I'm just going to simply type in 6. As I scroll down,
Tacoma has been like 8.
Yeah, or 11 or 12.
11 or 12.
Okay, Vija, are you married?
Yeah.
So under tax filing status, I'm going to go down and I'm going to select if she's married or not. I'm going to select married, because that affects how much tax benefit she's going to get from owning a home. And then I'm going to select the combined annual income of her and her spouse. So let's just pick what an average buyer in that price range is going to be doing. I selected that. It defaults the tax rate. I've done 4 things, very simple. It takes me 10 seconds normally, and I click view results. At the end, Vija, I say, here's what's interesting. I know you've been thinking about potentially renting a home instead of buying. And I just want to show you what it's going to cost you to do that. Number one, at an average 6% appreciation rate in our market, it's going to cost you $24,000 more next year to buy the same exact home. But if you bought a home today, that home will be worth $24,000 more than what you purchased it. If we just stick to the average in our area, I was very pessimistic and chose 6%. That's $24,000 you've increased your net worth because your home is worth more than what you owe. The next benefit of home ownership is principal reduction. Right now, Vija, you're renting. What you're doing with a portion of your rent is you're paying off your landlord's mortgage. And there's a portion of that every month that goes down to paying off his principal. Just like when you own a home, there'll be a portion of your monthly payment that goes to interest and a portion that goes to your principal. If I looked at the amount of money you said you're going to put down at the price you said you're going to pay, you are actually going to pay down your mortgage by $6,620. We call that forced savings in real estate, which means by owning a home, you're forced to save an extra $6,620. Now, the next benefit of home ownership is tax savings. In our current tax code allows the interest for your primary residence to be written off. So the amount of interest that you pay for the year will actually reduce the amount of money you tell the government that you made for your income, and the tax savings, the amount of money that you're going to pay less in taxes or you're going to get back in your tax return via, is $3,213. Let me summarize that for you. Simply by owning a home, doing what you said you wanted to do anyway, you are going to increase your wealth, savings, appreciation, and tax benefits by $33,832. That's pretty incredible. Now, I want to ask you a question. Is $33,832 worth it for you to buy now instead of wait a year?
Yeah, it makes me actually really motivated to participate in all these multiple offers when I hear that, because I was kind of resisting it, worried that I was going to maybe overpay, or that I didn't want to compete against 7 other people, and that I just wait for this market to pass. But when you explain it to me like that, it makes me realize that buying now might be more important than waiting a year, and this might not pass anyway.
Yeah. And here's the thing, Via, it's not just 33,832. That's what your net worth increases if you buy now. If you wait a year, you're going to lose out on making that 33,000, and you're going to pay $24,000 more. So you're actually losing $57,000 by simply waiting. And I know that $57,000 is important to you and your family, and it's not something that you would just be willing to nilly-willy throw away today. Now, the reason that I role play that with you and I show you the tools that our company is creating for you all is because how you win in 2021 is you have logical conversations, data-based conversations with people that trigger emotions that get them to act now. I'm logically proving to her that this financially is a great decision. And if she waits, it's going to cost her. And I'm making her think about, via just out of curiosity, if you had an extra $33,000 next year, what could you potentially do with that? That's $33,000 every year. So if we looked in 5 years, that's nearly $200,000. What would $200,000 mean to your family in 5 years? I know you have a couple kids, one in college and a couple more that they're on their way in. Like, what would that do for you and your family? And she starts thinking, gosh, I could actually pay off my kids' loans by simply buying a home today. And she starts making a logical connection to an emotional need that her and her family has. That's what we do in real estate, ladies and gentlemen. We help people manage their wealth in real estate. We don't sell shit. We help people make the right financial decision for themselves when it comes to real estate related investments and questions. We're their consultant, we're their partner, we're helping them. We're not selling them stuff. We're walking in there as saying, I care about you. Let me help you make the right decision for you and your family today. How does that connect to everybody in the audience? Type in your thoughts and ahas from that conversation while Via and I are continuing ours.
Here's what I love about it. I think the number one secret to my personal success and agents that are very successful, and I know, is their ability to understand the data and to communicate the data to the clients, whatever it looks like. And I think you said it really well, that the data will actually lead or reinforce the emotional reaction, which we are seeking that emotional trigger for sure. But we have to have some kind of a command of the data. And I think so many agents watching are secretly thinking to themselves, I don't know that I could explain that. I know that's what a lot of people are thinking, and you don't have to say anything, guys. It's okay. But I know a lot of people are thinking like, I couldn't probably explain that. Like, I'm not sure I have enough command and knowledge to do that. So how do you recommend agents get better at having the kind of conversation and role play you just had with me?
Here's the thing, is I built it into the calculator. On each screen, I actually wrote what they should say. According to Black Knight's Home Price Index, the average appreciation in the United States over the last 30 years is approximately 4%. Hit the next button. Did you know with a traditional principal and interest loan, a portion of your monthly payment reduces the principal amount owed on your loan? This reduction in principal creates additional equity in your property. Next one, tax savings. There are potential tax savings available to homeowners because of your ability to write off interest and other costs paid on your mortgage. by the way, please consult a tax professional to get more accurate, blah, blah, blah. I wrote the scripts for them. You don't have to be a rocket scientist. I used to teach this prior, Via, and the agents were struggling doing the math. They had to calculate the average interest in the loan. They had to do amortization schedule. They had to multiply the home value to figure out the appreciation. I just built it in there. Now it's paint by numbers.
Yeah.
Now this creates the end numbers that you just have to read. So as long as you can read, you could actually do this pretty well. The more you practice, the better you're going to get, the smoother it's going to come out. Well, another thing that we give everybody in our company is I gave you all Brivity market reports for free. It's my gift to you. You get to use it. Now, what do Brivity market reports do? They communicate to everybody in your database what's happening around their home. Whether they own or they rent. If they rent, it's showing them that homes are getting more expensive and they better act now. If they own, it's showing them that the value of homes are going up. And at one point, they're going to say, you know what? If my neighbor's house would sell for $600, I would sell mine. And it creates a conversation, and every message that goes out has your picture, your name, and your phone number, right, tied to you. It's a tool that takes the data from the MLS and delivers it to the customer that just by being a member of our brokerages, you don't have to pay for. Isn't that cool?
I just want to put a little plug in there, and we didn't plan this. I didn't know you were going to say that, but I have been sending out market reports for over a decade, and now I send Brivity ones. They are the single best thing I've ever emailed to my database because it's about them, not me. They don't really care what I have to say. They care how it affects them, Ben. And so it's I think market reports it's probably been over 10 years, are the best way to communicate because you're branding yourself. You have your logo and or your photo and all the things. And you're showing them what's happening in their neighborhood. And it's just the most important thing that we share. And like you guys hear me say all the time, they don't want your recipes. They really don't. I made an amazing miso black cod this weekend, and you want that recipe, but my clients don't want it. They don't. They want to know what's happening in their neighborhood and in their market. So I love that.
We had a top agent in Olympia, Gail, and Gail reached out to me last week. She said, "Hey, I met this lady a year and a half ago, and she never got back to me. So I just set her up on a market report." Well, she sent me a message yesterday that said, "Hey, I'm getting ready to sell my house, and I had a couple friends recommend local realtors, and I went back to them and said, nope, Gail's been communicating with me every week or every 2 weeks for the last 2 years. There's no way I would work with anybody else. The only thing Gail did was set this person up on a market report and let the market report send her name and picture and information of what's going on. It did the heavy lifting. So the lady literally just called and said, I'm not hiring anybody else but you. And I'm hiring you because you communicated what was going on in the market. And now I'm finally ready."
Did you guys all see the Wednesday webinar that Gail was on? She told that exact story. If not, you can go to our YouTube page and watch the replay on that. Gail gives incredible scripts and approaches to how to take those leads and convert them. She's amazing.
And if you're in one of our brokerages and you're wondering how to get those market reports, go to your TL or your MCA and they'll give you the link for you to be a part of that.
Yeah, or you can email me or anyone in leadership and we'll help you with that. So I love this, Ben. There is an overarching theme. Every market watching this is almost all markets are low in inventory. So let's drill down a little bit on what you're seeing right now that's working on, getting more inventory, whether that's off-market properties or getting sellers off the fence. A lot of questions here on, how do I get my seller off the fence? Talk to us about what's working right now.
Yeah, we have one job for 2021, and it's get listings.
Right.
And then once we get listings, it's to connect it to our buyers and to the buyers that are represented by the agents in our brokerage. That is the best thing that we can do, is help connect two ready and willing people that are willing to come together and agree on a price and terms. That's our job. All we do is connect people. We don't sell shit once again. We connect it. But here's the secret. It's going to freaking blow you guys away. I want you guys to write this down. This is the mind-melting comment of the day. I promise you. Here's what I found. Most people live somewhere. I know. I want you guys to really think on that statement. But I've met a lot of people in my life. Most people live somewhere. Now, why is it that I take the time to say something so stupid? It's because we treat buyers like buyers and sellers like sellers. And we don't tend to say, you know what? There's a good chance this person lives somewhere, and they either own it or they know somebody that owns that place. So when they move out, that person's going to either need to find a renter or find a new, they want to sell it. Or if they own it, they're going to need to sell that first, or they're going to need to know what it's worth. So the very first tip is treat every single lead that you get, whether it's an open house, a sign call, an internet lead, somebody in your database, as a potential seller. I gave another friend of mine some advice the other day, and she was talking about needing to find an admin. And I said, well, have you made a list of what that person would do and how that person would behave and what that person would feel and look like? She said, no, I haven't done that. And I said, well, how are you going to know them when they walk in front of you? You're not even going to recognize them. We have another friend, he's looking for a honey bunny, the love of his life. And I said, have you made a list of what that person would look like, what they would sound like, right? What they would do and how they would treat you? And he said, no. And I said, well, how are you going to recognize them if they're standing in front of you at Starbucks or on the other side of a transaction? Or how are you going to recognize them? Well, we need to understand that we need to recognize listing opportunities by understanding the words that people would say that would indicate that they may need to sell or they currently own. And we need to come up with a list of questions that we can ask everybody that are very easy and not slimy and not salesy, and a list of tools that we can implement that would get people to raise their hands, like market reports. So let's go back to a simple script. It's the two things script. I use it for open houses, sign calls, internet leads. It's very simple. People come into my open houses for one of two reasons. One, they're curious what their home is worth because they're thinking about selling. Or two, they're thinking about buying. Which one are you? Now, what did I start with, Via?
People come into my open house for one of two reasons.
But what was the first reason?
Seller. People want to know how much their home is worth.
I start with that because that's what I want the most. Most people would start with, hey, what brings you in? You want to buy a house? Well, that's obvious. They're actually in there looking. Why don't you start talking about the thing that you want the most, right? Which is listing. Well, somebody calls on your signs. What do you say to them? Well, I would say, what's funny is that people call on this particular property for one of two reasons. One, they're a neighbor and they're curious what their own home is worth because they're thinking about selling. Or two, they're a buyer and they're thinking about buying. Which one are you? The worst case scenario is they could say both. That isn't bad. That'd be awesome. Well, if somebody registered on your website, what do you say to them? Well, I'd say, what's funny is that people usually register on my website for one or two reasons. One, they're curious what their own home is worth because they're thinking about selling. Or two, they're thinking about buying. Which one are you? Every conversation should focus on the thing that you want most. When you're calling your sphere, why don't you simply say to them, what's funny, I'm having a lot of these conversations with my friends and past clients, and there's usually one or two things going through their mind. One, they're curious what their home is worth because they've considered selling. Or two, they're thinking about buying or investing in an additional property. Just out of curiosity, which one are you? Every conversation, focus on asking for what's most important. And then you're going to start recognizing it. You're going to start seeing those opportunities. I call, in my career, I've called a lot of canceled expireds, probably more than 99% of agents in the world. And I did that because I didn't have any money, so I couldn't do any marketing. And I didn't have a big database of past clients because I was newer to the business. So I had to find ready and willing business. Well, one of my secrets was I would call vacant land listings, business opportunities, commercial properties. And here's why. I've never met anybody that owned a lot that didn't also own a house. I don't know anybody that owns a commercial building that doesn't also own a house, right? So I would call those things and I would end up with home listings. Hey, I saw that you had your property up for sale. Looks like it was a lot in the Tacoma area. It looks like a great property. Just out of curiosity, you must have bought it for a reason. Why'd you buy it in the first place? And I said, well, I was thinking about building my dream house. Are you not going to do that anymore? Well, I don't know. Well, do you live in one currently? Yeah, we have one. What if you sold that? Then could you build your dream house? I guess I didn't think about that. I just thought about maybe getting rid of a lot. Well, why don't we take a look at both of them and see which one would sell better today and which one's worth the most? And you can make the right decision for you. I'll meet you over at your house after previewing the lot, and we'll talk about it and we'll compare the values of both of them. Remember that most people live somewhere and they're waiting for somebody like you to reach out to them and offer your services, not to sell them shit, but to simply empathetically say, I care about you and I want to help you make the right decision when it comes to the amount of money that you have invested in the asset that we call real estate.
You know what that reminds me of, Ben? Your doctor story. I think you should tell your doctor story, because to me, that drills that home, because what it does is it single-handedly describes how we need to be as agents, how we need to truly come at it as consultants and focused on their needs, not our needs. And you showed it with that example, but I think your doctor story in real world is really one of the best stories in real estate.
Okay, great. My doctor calls me. Great doctor, by the way. By the way, your doctor calls you for one or two reasons. One, you're super sick and dying and you don't want to answer the phone. Or two, he wants to use your services to buy or sell real estate. Luckily, it wasn't about a rash. It wasn't about me dying. It was simply he wanted to talk about real estate.
Well, it was a rash and real estate, but that's
a rashy real estate situation. Right. He says, "Hey, Ben, would you be willing to come over to my house tonight?" I said, "Of course." I said, "What's on your mind?" He says, "We're thinking about selling. Curious if you could give me an estimate on how long it would take and what it'd sell for." Great. Go over to his house. Sit down and say, "Doc, show me around. Tell me about the property. We've owned it for a long time, and we raised our kids here, and we're thinking about selling." I said, "Why?" I said, "It's on the lake. It's beautiful. It's phenomenal property." He said, kind of a personal story. He said, I was raised in Yugoslavia. I was a doctor there. And when the war in that whole area, Bosnia, Yugoslavia, all that happened, we left. We became refugees and we moved to the U.S. And when we moved to the U.S., they wouldn't accept my credentials from Yugoslavia. I had to start over, and I had to go through college, and I had to go through medical school, and I had to start from scratch. And he said that put us in kind of a financial burden that we just now kind of got it paid off, and we don't have a ton of money for retirement. We're going to be on somewhat of a fixed income. I said, "Okay, so what's the issue with your house?" He said, "Taxes are too much." I said, "Okay." He said, "That'll cut in too much to our amount of money that we have left over every month to pay bills and to live."
And it was an expensive house, right?
Yeah,
I mean, great listing, right?
It was a seven-figure, $1 million plus property. I said, "Great. But here's the thing that I know, Doc, is that most people live somewhere. So if you were to sell it, what would you do?" He said, "Well, we want to build a smaller house that's cheaper and we'll pay less taxes." I said, "Great. Where do you want to do that?" He said, "I found a lot. It's not on the market, but they will sell." I said, "Even better. Well, let's go look at it." So we jump in his car. We're driving over there. And I remembered to do something that I learned early in my career. I simply said, "Hey, just out of curiosity, I know that you showed me the house that you're living in now. Do you own any other real estate?" And he said, "Funny you ask. We do. We have a condo up in Canada." I said, "Do you owe anything on it?" He said, "No, we don't." And I said, "What's it worth?" And he said, "It's worth about 500,000 Canadian pesos." I said, "So does it make a lot of income?" He said, "No, the HOA dues are really high and taxes and other things. So we don't really make much from it." I said, "Okay, do you guys use it?" He said, "No, we haven't used it. We thought we would, and it's just rented." I said, "Okay, great." So we drive over, we look at the lot. Lot's $150,000, 5-acre piece, not on water, tucked in the woods, normal 5-acre Whatcom County property. I said, "This is a nice property. By the way, by the time you file for a building permit in our area, it's about $30,000. You're gonna have to put septic and well and that kind of stuff in. But you're in at a minimum $50,000. So you're paying $200,000 for the lot. Now, when you buy the lot, then you got to build a house on it, right, Doc?" He said, "Yep." I said, "How big of a house would you build?" He said, "We only need like 2,000 square feet. We're retiring. We have one kid. They're going to come over every once in a while, but I want a nice garage because I like to tinker in the garage and that kind of stuff." It's okay. You're a minimum $200 a square foot. So we're looking at 400,000 to build your home on top of the 200,000 for the lot. So he's going to be taxed at an assessed value of 600,000. His current home, even though it's worth more than $1 million, it's been depreciated. He's paying taxes on $1 million property. So really what he's saving is he's saving taxes on $400,000 by buying this house. So you take 400,000 times it by our average tax rate, 0.0, let's say 11. He's saving 4,400 a year divided by 12. He's going to save $400 a month. To him, that's worth it, and it means something. And I said, "Hey, just out of curiosity, would you be open to an alternative?" And he said, "Tell me, what are you thinking?" And I said, "Why don't we sell that shitty Canadian condo that's not making you anything and you don't use? Look, by the time we do the exchange rate, you're going to have about $400,000 of US money. Why don't you let me take that money and I'll find you a duplex somewhere in our county that we can buy. And that duplex will probably rent for $1,500 to $1,800 a side. And I said, we'll pay it off. So you don't owe any mortgage. You have no risk, something like that. We'll take the money from there. So instead of saving $400 a month, you can make $3,600 a month in free cash flow. Let's say you pay some expenses on it, and via you got to pay a property manager because you guys aren't going to want to deal with that. Let's take away $600. You're going to make $3,000. So you're going to make $36,000 a year. Would that help you and your family in retirement? He said that would be dramatically helpful. And I said, would that be better than saving $400 a month on property taxes and walking away from the home you raised your kids in that's on the lake that you love and you get to watch the birds and your wife drinks coffee on the dock in the morning? Like, would that be better? He said, Ben, don't be offended by this, but I've talked to 2 other agents and nobody else suggested this. Why is that? And I said, because they help you sell shit. They're trying to be a transactional real estate person that's helping themselves get the commission and sell stuff. Doc, I'm interviewing to be your realtor for life. I want to help you sell stuff when it's the right time. But what I really do is I help people manage their wealth in real estate. I help people manage their wealth in real estate. Remember that, everybody. You don't sell shit. Lots of agents in the world sell shit. We help people manage their wealth in real estate. And we help people make the right decision. And sometimes that decision is to not sell. Sometimes it's to keep it. And we do what's best for them, not what's best for our commissions. Right? Slimy, self-centered, greedy people would give them the advice that other people did. I took the time to be a consultant and ask questions and to solve their long-term goal, which is to have more money in retirement. Maybe they will still sell that home at some point, and I guarantee you I'll be the person that he hires because I didn't just jump on the opportunity to take the listing, even though I could have got it that night. Does that make sense, everybody? That's what we do, and that's what 2021 is going to require us to do, is to have 150 conversations a week with people that want to buy, sell, or invest in real estate, to know the data, what's going on, to be a consultant and ask great questions and help them make the right decision for them and their family. And when you do that, they will thank you. They will never forget you. They will refer you everybody, and they will become your raving fan. And that's what I want for all of you. If you just want to sell shit, that position is not available at our brokerage. Our brokerage, we care about people. We care about their best interest, and we're interviewing to be their realtor for life, not just a one night stand of real estate agents. We're not being the tender of real estate. That's what Redfin and Zillow are for. We are not the tender of real estate, everybody. We are a lifetime marriage partnership with our clients, and I hope that's who you want to be. And I hope that you got a ton of value out of this conversations today.
Yeah, I couldn't think of a better way to end. I think that is one of the best stories in real estate, period, hands down. And it single-handedly defines who we all have to be. Well done, Ben. Well done. Thank you for joining us this hour. Ben, where can everybody find you? What's the name of your podcast?
We have a couple of great podcasts. One, yours, the Empire Builders. And 2, the Win, Make, Give, if you want to listen to our leadership lessons. And we just launched a health and wellness and happiness podcast called the 15-Point Plan. The first episode dropped today and 3 more dropping next week. So we hope you check it out. I'm very easy to reach by Facebook, by email, by LinkedIn, by text. You all can reach out to me anytime you want because we're in business together.
Right. Well, thank you, Ben. We appreciate your time on this inauguration day. And everybody, thank you for joining us. And we will be here next week with the ops bosses. They are masters, Christy Belt-Grossman and Stephanie Brackett. Have a great week.
Awesome. Cheers.
Bye, everyone.